Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the final edition of Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts for 2020. Yay!
Wrapping it up.
Streamers
and should have had the streamers and the
I'll put some digital confetti on the screen there. We've made it to the end of 2020. This is our 67th tax hack, our 67th podcast, basically a fun little way to do that. So we hope that you picked up a useful nugget or two along the way and enjoyed yourself. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast or Phil's Facebook page, whatever you like to do, just so you get updated with new ones as they come out. He sends these out in newsletters and email blasts and various different things, but you can make it super simple on yourself by just subscribing on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or iHeart or Stitcher. All of those things are pretty much pre-installed on your phone nowadays. So all you got to do is open whatever those apps are, type in Phil's Tax Hacks in the search box. You should be able to find it, hit the little subscribe button, and you are good to go. And it supports the channel as well. So that's a nice way to go about it. And it doesn't cost you anything. So pretty easy to do. What's going on, my friend? Welcome to the end of this year.
I'm doing great. Looking forward to wrapping this year up. So
I'll tell you what, yeah.
So the holiday seasons, depending on who knows what exactly that's going to look like as we get into the last couple of weeks here. But
we're going to finish this off with 2 weeks to go left in the month. We're going to finish our last podcast for the holidays, just the way they fall. We're going to take off Christmas week and New Year's Eve week, or New Year's week, I suppose. So we'll be back at the first of 2021. We thought we'd finish off this year with a little levity, a little something different. We're just going to talk about retirement lifestyle, since a big portion of our listeners are retirees and pre-retirees, folks getting closer to that. Mm-hmm. We thought we'd go through a conversation. I've got a few items here, Phil, where just really, what's your retirement lifestyle plan? What are you kind of envisioning? We've had we kind of gave it some fun titles or some silly titles here for some of these. And basically, have you really thought about it? So if you're getting close to pulling that retirement trigger, and maybe COVID has pushed that feeling and that conversation more forward, have you really talked with your spouse or significant other? Have you really gone through your advisor and really shared with them what you want retirement to look like? So I'm going to give you guys and Phil the type here, and I'll let Phil talk about some things to ponder when it comes to the types of lifestyles. Okay?
Sure.
All right. So here's the challenge for you, my friend. The two-house solution. Being in a Michigander now, you definitely got folks who want to have two homes.
We call them snowbirds. Or I guess that's what they call us Michiganders down in Florida. So.
Yeah, you could have the Youpers though. You could have the folks who want to be up north.
It's funny you say that, because I do have several clients that their idea of retirement is going north. So they've maybe got a property up north that's where they end up going all the time now. So
we were just talking about how really cold it is.
So it depends on what you like in retirement. But that's really kind of what this topic is geared towards, is that retirement discussion. There's a lot involved in it, and how much it takes for you to retire is going to be dependent on what kind of these lifestyles you want to live. So
are you a two household kind of person? Is that something that's on your mind, folks? I feel again, you probably have a variety of people who do some of that. Maybe it's warmer weather. Maybe it's tax incentives. Maybe you want a house that isn't which is one of the reasons I think Florida typically is on there, right?
Yep. Yeah, Florida is probably the number one. That's where
Arizona.
Most retirees. Arizona is getting up there now. Or even Texas, Alabama area. But I think between Florida and Arizona are the top two.
Yeah.
Basically it's are you wanting to spend, maybe part of the year in your Michigan or wherever you're located, your household home, and then you want to get away for a few months or half the year scenario. Kind of depends on what you're looking at. So could be some tax reasons for it.
I do have several clients that have any negatives to ponder.
Well, you have to realize, both benefits and downfalls to it, right? Everyone thinks of, I want to make Florida my residence, and there's no state income tax there. That's great. For Michigan, you're going to save 4.25%.
Okay.
So the flip side of that, now you've got to start to realize, is that now you are a non-resident of Michigan, so your property taxes in your house are going to almost double.
Oh, okay.
And if you've got a second home, that would probably already has affected that way anyway. So it's going to be somewhat of a trade-off. You're not going to have taxes on certain items. Michigan already doesn't tax Social Security. They already don't tax $20,000 to $40,000 of kind of an exemption amount that they give certain retirees depending on age.
Okay.
So again, if you're going to do it for tax reasons, understand what the real number is, run the math behind it to see. We've got a lot of clients. We talked earlier about Roth conversions and other podcasts. And if you've made Florida your principal residence as we're doing conversions, well, you're saving 4.25% on the whole Roth conversion amounts. And that could be a pretty significant savings too. So
weather typically is what we see a lot. Taxes could be another one. Downside, I guess, would be depending on if you're, so let's say just here in Michigan, if your family's here and you're going to Florida half the year, you may be missing out on some things that you might not have. So it's always pros and cons with anything. And you're going to find that through this list. And some of these actually might even work together. You might be like, well, I want to kind of combine a couple of these. So, and these are just some fun things and some typical items that we tend to see through the year. So again, as you're going along, you might find that 2 or 3 of these kind of resonate.
Yep.
Yeah, the key is talking it through. This one is interesting. So my bandmate and my buddy Phil, he just bought a camper. He's retired military. His wife's not working, and so they're 45 because he did his 20 years. And so he retired at 45, and he bought a camper, and he bought it for 2 reasons. One, because they have their first grandbaby, and while they want to spend a lot of time with her, of course, what happens often is their kids are taking advantage of the built-in babysitting.
Yes.
Right. And so that, and a couple with just kind of, getting out and doing some things and just all his years of travel and the service, he just kind of feels like, so he got a camper. Basically, we're calling this one the RV life. So whether it's an RV or a camper, there are folks who want to get a vehicle like that, whether it's pull behind or a drivable, and travel around and just go place to place. And of course, COVID is actually surprisingly kicked this up.
Oh, it's accelerated it dramatically.
2,000% up in RV and camper sales. And he was telling me some of the camper parks they've been to just in November and December have been slammed full of folks doing things. Do you have anybody who's kind of expressed interest in something like that?
Yeah, it's funny. I've got a lot of clients that use or take the RV lifestyle. I was gonna say that's our preference. We've camped for years, and as I get to the point of retirement, that is going to be what we do. Is I don't want to have a second residence down in Florida. Nothing against Florida, nothing against owning a second residence, but hey, I don't know where we want to go. What do we want to see? And that's the advantage of the RV lifestyle, is that you've got your own mobile home, so to speak, with you, and you go wherever you want to go, kind of check it out. And you're going to find some places you like. But at least that way you're not stuck, if you want to think of it that way, in one place, unless you find something you really like. And maybe at some point you do, and you decide to buy something versus, traveling in an RV, because there's pros and cons. I mean, it's nice. It's convenient.
They got 2 big German Shepherds, which is really interesting.
Dogs always make it interesting. That's actually not one of the main reasons, but a reason that we went from a pop-up into a fifth wheel eventually, because we had a golden retriever. Yeah. And as she grew, it's like, okay, her and 3 kids and a pop-up, it's getting kind of tight in here.
Yeah. So. Well, and some people, and my buddy's contemplating this, and I asked him, and I thought it would be fun to add it to the podcast this week. He's really considering, they're really talking about selling their home at some point. They don't have any real ties. He's been in the same military town here in North Carolina for the entire 20 plus years. They've got a couple of good friends, but they're thinking about maybe selling the home or Airbnb-ing it and just living in the camper and doing the camper thing. And I was like, that sounds fun, but is that sustainable for maybe a couple of years? But after that, I mean, age is, granted, they're younger right now, but age is going to factor in. You can only sleep in a little bed, for so long.
And I mean, it depends on the type of camper they have. I mean, some of them are pretty nice. You could comfortably live there for a while. Yeah. But I mean, it's back to kind of that tiny house conversation, so to speak. True. I mean, if you've got a 2,000, 3,000 or bigger square foot home now that you've lived in for 20 years or more, there's a lot of stuff in that house. And so you're going to Airbnb it or get rid of it. What are you going to do with all that stuff and downsize and condense into something you can pull with you, unless you want to rent a storage facility? And
he's talking about chopping and chopping a lot of stuff off, right? So and maybe
it could be that I don't have any clients that have done that. The clients that are doing this that I work with is more, rather than having a second residence in Florida, this is their version of that, where they have an RV and they generally like RVing anyways. And
I can see that in the go-go years definitely being viable. I could see it starting to taper off in those slow go years when we get to that point, where we're starting to, it's a bit more hassle, especially if you're talking about a pull behind, right? There's a little bit more work. Things of that nature.
It's funny. My wife and I have already had some of that discussion. We have a fifth wheel. So, I mean, it's not that difficult to tow and hook up. And I mean, leveling anymore is you hit the button and it levels itself and does everything. So, I mean, it's not that difficult, but at the end of the day, it's still you're towing and, and she's like, I don't know, we'll see at some point, you might not want to do that anymore. We might go into more of a, the larger Class A type RV where you drive, and there's pros and cons. I mean, it's, but
then then you may have to pull a small vehicle behind you if you want to go around.
That's the whole other part of it. Yeah. It's funny.
You're still
funny because I love this kind of discussion because it's one of my passions and we love it.
Yeah.
So we, as clients have, some of it, I've introduced it to them and they've picked up and they love it. And others have done this. And we've had these discussions. And I just had that discussion with a client earlier that they were talking about, I think we're going to do a bigger Class C and, and we started talking about, well, you're probably going to want to tow a car. Why would I want to do that? I said, okay, well, stop and think about this for a second. You got a 30-foot Class C.
Yeah.
All the slides are pulled out. You got in the campground. Now you got to go to the grocery store. What are you going to do?
Right.
You got to bring everything back in, pack it up, go to the grocery store, and then come back. You know. I mean, you can Uber, you can, maybe.
Yeah,
but
maybe. But depending on where you're at, the idea
maybe
is
not,
probably going to be in places where that's not the case.
So,
and then, then you get some interesting characters along the way as well. So
we could probably have a whole podcast just on the RV lifestyle.
Maybe we'll do that. I'll put that down for 2021. We'll do more on the RV life. Yeah, we'll keep moving along for today to try to get through as many of these as we can. This one, I don't think we see much anymore, Phil. So we'll go to this next one. But COVID has certainly brought this next one to the forefront.
Yes.
And we are hopeful, very hopeful, that this will not be an ongoing problem in 2021, but it could be for a while.
Yes.
And that's the front porch life, But that doesn't seem to be that common anymore for people that retire to just chill.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't happen that often anymore. I mean, I don't have any clients specifically I can think of that is their version of retirement. They're pretty active. But hey, if that's your lifestyle or what you like to do in retirement, that's great. Now, comparing costs with other lifestyles, that's very inexpensive. There's not a lot involved. Well, I guess it depends on what your front porch looks like and what your version of the front porch is.
Sure.
But
it's a big old wraparound like up at Mackinac. You might have some issues.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're not traveling a lot, you just like to stay at home. There's nothing wrong with any of these. If that's what it's retirement is, what you want to do.
That's the point of the conversation, right? What it is that you want to do. But that's a great point you bring up. A lot of people, we talk about a lot of the X's and O's often on the show, and financially, many people are behind the 8 ball or think they're behind the 8 ball until they come in and get a plan and find out where they actually stand. And maybe you need to go into retirement for whatever the reason might be. The front porch life could be the way you do that a little sooner than you wanted to or when you needed to, because you financially aren't quite there yet. Right. Does that make sense? Because like you said, it's not as expensive.
Yeah. And that's, always a big question that comes up is, do I have enough? How do I compare to other people?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, look, it really depends. I mean, it's all very fluid. What does your version of retirement look like? What if you're a front porch, that's a pretty inexpensive retirement versus if you're the, 2-home or an RV lifestyle or, something. I mean, a lot of travel. Now we're kind of up in the threshold, so to speak, on what that cost is. So.
True. Yeah. I was just talking with a guy earlier for this next one. I was doing a show with a fella in Pennsylvania, and he was talking about for his gifts this year at Christmas, he gave a lot of his folks like I guess coupons or vouchers or I don't know whatever it was, gift cards, whatever, for cruise lines, concerts, all the things we couldn't do in 2020 because he's gotten great deals on them.
Oh yeah,
to buy them for 2021 or beyond. So he's given that away as Christmas presents. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, an interesting way to do it. And so this next one's kind of called the college life, if you will, because typically, and it's an interesting stat, there's some of the bigger popular places to retire also are adjacent to larger college-y type of draws because they have access to great music venues and access to great restaurants and sporting events. And so some people, when they want to retire, they want to downsize, maybe get a condo or something. They want to be in the nightlife. They want to be where there's always something happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're very active in that social type of events like that, that might be a great lifestyle for you. Move to or near a college town. I mean, there's a lot of conveniences, number one.
I mean,
and
Florida,
like you mentioned, now you're going to have, you've got the stadiums there for that college if they're, have any kind of sporting. So probably want to move to the college for the team, your favorite team, right?
Right.
Typically great venues for, like you said, concerts and restaurants and all the above. So it's a much different
Nashville's
lifestyle.
Gotten very popular prior to COVID, had gotten very popular in Nashville for people to retire to. You've got both weather. You've got warmer southern weather, but you've also got a little winter going on. Obviously, lots of music venues. There's sports teams, all the major sport teams, definitely college. So, Austin, Texas, just about any city in Florida, so it definitely pops up. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, Florida, I mentioned it. So let's go ahead and go with, what is it? God's waiting room is what they call it.
Yep. And it is probably the number one destination of retirement. My parents finally got a second home down in Florida. I think it's been 3 or 4 years ago now. So they gave in and they've got a second home where they spend actually more and more of the year down there now. They're trying to avoid the snow. So each year it's a little bit earlier. I think this year was almost Halloween and they were down there already because they got hit with a snowstorm last year and they're like, oh, we waited too long. We're going earlier next year.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that a little bit with the 2-household situation, but maybe you just want to live there permanently. There's a lot, obviously, you could have the conversation. There's a ton of activities and the grandkids want to come and see you because of Disney and all the parks and yada, yada, yada. Plus you've got the warmer weather and golf and, so on and so forth, but there's cons.
I was gonna say, Florida gives you a lot of options. I mean, if you want a ton of activity and things to do, the Orlando area with Disney, and I mean, it's hopping all the time. There's, nightlife,
there's
whatever you want to do. Yeah, but there's an awful lot of people. You have to love traffic because you're going to be in traffic all the time.
Humidity.
Yeah, I don't know that I could ever live in Florida full time just because of that. So it depends on the area. I mean, you get to northern Florida and it has a little bit more temperature. Yeah. Tempedness, I should say,
or some ocean breeze. There's a couple, there's like anything, there's some mitigation. I will say though, I think Louisiana is worse than Florida. The most humid I've ever been is in Louisiana. So love you, Louisiana, but it's definitely humid there.
It is humid.
All right. So can't talk about Florida without talking about the golf courses.
Golf. Yeah.
But let's be fair. There's golf courses everywhere. And a lot of people, it's a cliche of retirement, but hey, if it's your thing, it's your thing. A lot of people want to retire, men and women, and really hit the links. I've got a good friend who plays, he's retired now, he's 65, and he plays probably 4 times a week. But you got to plan for that, Phil. It's costly.
It is very costly. Yes, we talk about costly retirement. You better have this golf budget in play because it's going to be expensive. Number one, if you want to live on the course, I mean, there's usually a pretty sizable upcharge for residences on or near that course. But and memberships at the Golf for Country Club now. And so there's a lot more expense. But again, if that's your version of life in retirement, then hey. But make sure what does it take to make that happen?
Right. Make sure it's simpatico for both people because I'm sure a lot of times one wants to play a lot of golf and the other could care less. And so you got to strike that happy balance. Living here in North Carolina, I'm actually 20 minutes away from Pinehurst. And of course, number 9 there is a famous, golf hole with, or golf course where, the U.S. Open's played and tons of things like that. And it is mega pricey, it is. Quite expensive.
You get into any of the popular courses like that, you're
Beach, so on.
Big wallet out because it's going to be expensive. So.
So working with an advisor, to plan for that, and any of these really having that conversation to make sure that you're planning accordingly for the lifestyle that you want. And that's really just kind of the idea behind the show this week. And then really, Phil, we can sum all this up on our final one, which is just, to your point, you got very passionate about the RV life. Whatever your lifestyle and retirement you want it to be, just follow a passion, chase a passion, because isn't that the point of retirement?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you've worked all these years. Now it's time to maybe step back and enjoy it, however that version of an enjoyment is for you. If it's sitting on the front porch, just watching the world go by and taking it easy, that's great. Then, plan for that. Yeah. If you want that active college type lifestyle, I always like things going on, there you go, or you want to travel. I mean, there's all these different options, but at the end of the day, it's part of, in fact, probably the biggest part of retirement that you have to understand what does that look like and how long.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you like to golf, but how many years are you going to golf?
How many rounds can you play?
Yeah. How many rounds can you play? And so.
Well, I mean, passion, I mean, no matter what it is, right, Phil, whether it's helping others, whether it's, volunteering at the animal shelters, whether it's, starting a second business, a lot of the things that we've covered throughout this year on the podcast, whatever it is, we're humans, we're not designed to do what we're doing right now. I don't want to get all too much of on a soapbox, but, sitting and confining and locking down, if it's, if that's going to help us, great, but at the end of the day, we can't do this for long. We're not built that way. And so retirement, in a way, is a COVID lockdown if you don't find a passion in something that you could chase. Or am I being a little too dramatic there?
No, absolutely. I mean, we talked a lot about the others are kind of destinations, so to speak, or, what you'd like to do from retirement. But that passion of, if you like to volunteer, then that has to kind of blend in, then with what maybe where you end up, the style of life or retirement lifestyle you have. So, but absolutely. It's a big piece of retirement. You don't want to, you want to have that piece thought out. What does it look like? Exactly. What is retirement for you? Not just, all right, I'm going to stop working next week and I don't know what I'm going to do. So
I've punched my last clock down to the factory and I'm done, kind of thing. And we talk about the X's and O's, the money all the time on the show, and we do deviate once in a while and get into some of the other parts of retirement. And we'll continue to do so because there is so many moving parts to planning for retirement. But you still do have to have that plan because whatever your lifestyle is and whatever the passion is, unless you're just sitting on a heap of cash, and I mean a heap of cash, planning has got to go into it.
Plant those money trees in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. So working with an advisor and really just trying to get those goals accomplished is kind of paramount. They run tandem. They run together.
Absolutely. And then as a married couple, if you're married, have the discussion together. What are hopefully your passions are similar and you kind of blend in. That makes it a whole lot easier. Yeah. But I mean, if they're not, then you got to have the discussion because, if you love golf and you want to live on a golf course, but your wife is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, I don't want to be picking up golf balls out of the yard and, having them fly through the windows and
what you say that made me think, I was like, I don't know what my wife and I are going to do because we don't have a whole lot in common. Actually, we are, as far as our interests go, they couldn't be more different. I mean, she likes to paint and I like to make music and we like to watch movies and that's about it. So
you're going to have a house that you each have your own little space to do that.
Which
you
we already do. Yeah.
Big theater in the basement you can watch movies in.
which we already do. But no matter what it is, folks, just, make sure that you're working with your spouse, your significant other, and your advisor to get a plan in place that's going to help you achieve those lifestyle goals, those retirement lifestyle goals. And that's going to do it for us for this year on 2020. This was our 67th podcast, I believe, hack number 67. So we certainly appreciated your time. Phil, I've enjoyed talking with you all year. It's been a ton of fun.
Likewise, it's been fun. Have a great new year. We'll talk after the first of the year.
Absolutely. Have a great Christmas. Enjoy whatever it is that it's going to be this year. Make the best of it. Celebrate the ringing of the year as this one goes out and the new one comes in, but just temper it a little bit with some expectations for 2021. But if you got questions, you need help, you know what to do, reach out to Phil, 248-888-7530, 248-888-7530, or go to philstaxhacks.com. Oh, my voice gave out. philstaxhacks.com, and we'll see you in 2021. Bye, folks.
All right. Have a great Christmas.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.